Okay, first of all, what are you doing here in Quincy today?
Well, I'm here to support a good friend, Kyle Moore, who's running for the mayorship here of Quincy. I'm excited about his candidacy. I think he's got the right ideas to get the economy here in Quincy going, and he's done a great job on the city council as a city councilman, and so I'm here to show my support and to rally the Quincy community behind Kyle Moore's campaign.
Talk with us a little bit about last week, your words about your intentions of running for governor, the possibility.
Well, I was very honest about the fact that I'm looking at running for governor. I think I've been very outspoken that we need to change the leadership here in the state. I come back from Washington, D.C. every weekend, and I'm in shock over the lack of leadership in Springfield. We continue to go down the road of not dealing with pension reform, not dealing with a lot of the cuts that need to happen here in state government. And it's the same people that keep getting elected. And I'm a firm believer that you've got to change some of the people in Springfield if you want different results. And that starts at the top. Governor Quinn has been in state government for 30 years. And at some point, it's time to lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Now, talk to me a little bit about what do you think is different that you could bring to Springfield that maybe we're not seeing right now?
Well, first of all, I think you got to have somebody who can get results. Certainly in the United States Congress, serving on the Ways and Means Committee, the best committee in Congress, I've been able to work on both sides of the aisle to pass legislation, the free trade agreements that we got passed, other pro-business legislation that's passed. In Springfield, I had a record of passing 18 bills in my first term, in the minority. Why was I able to do that? Because I worked with Democrats and Republicans alike in the State House. So being able to work both sides of the aisle is very important. No party is going to control the entire process if you have a Republican governor and a Democratic legislature. So being able to be a bipartisan leader, I think, is very important to be an effective governor.
Your thoughts on the fiscal cliff vote?
Well, look, there's going to be no perfect bill so long as you have a Republican House and a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president. We have divided government in Washington, D.C., and both sides need to expect that they're not going to get everything they want when it comes to negotiating. Having said that, we had an opportunity on January 1st to extend 99% of the Bush-era tax cuts permanently for every American and small business. I think that was a good thing. Did it do the cuts in spending? Did it do the entitlement reform that we need? No. And those are areas we still need to work on. But on the issue of tax policy, which is what this bill dealt with, I thought overall it was a good bill.
Obviously, gun legislation has been making a lot of our news lately. Can you talk a little bit about the direction you feel the president is taking as far as these committees and different things like that? How do you feel things are going, and where do you think they need to go?
Yeah. Well, I've been disappointed that all the conversation has been over gun control and not mental health. Because the common denominator on the travesty in Connecticut, the travesty in Denver and other portions of our country where these murders have taken place is these have been young men who have serious mental health issues that have not gotten the help they need. Much of the gun legislation that's being proposed would in fact not have stopped any of these travesties. Certainly the mother who bought the guns for her mentally ill child would have been able to buy the guns even under the new laws that the president is proposing. And the rifle that was used would not have been banned under any of the legislation that the president is proposing. So I think some of this, I would humbly submit, is really political tactics, really political posturing, as opposed to getting to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is a mental health crisis in this country that we're not willing to fess up and talk about. So I'm working with a colleague of mine, Jason Chaffetz from Utah, on legislation dealing with mental health access so parents can get their kids into institutionalized care that might not otherwise be able to right now. Beyond that, we'll wait and see on gun legislation what the Senate does. Harry Reid has said he's going to take something up in the next couple of months. But Harry Reid also has an A+ with the NRA. And he has opposed issues like the assault weapons ban and so on in the past. So I have no idea what the Senate will ultimately do on gun legislation, but we'll see. And then once the Senate takes action on its version, then the House will take up the bill and do its version.
I want to go back to the gubernatorial race.
Yes.
You're young, you're in a safe district, you're on Ways and Means, you're pretty well set up for now. Why come back to a situation that, to I think a lot of people, looks almost impossible for anybody to solve, at least in the short term. Why put yourself up for that?
Well, two things. First of all, I'm weighing where I can do the most good. And so you're right. I'm not in an uncomfortable position right now. I've got a great committee assignment. I'm in a position to do good federally. But I also come back to Illinois every weekend, and I see a state that continues to head in the wrong direction. I see constituents in my district that are being put out of work, businesses that are leaving our state, not for Mexico or China, but for Indiana, for Wisconsin. The United Van Lines Corporation put out their study that they do every year. In 2011, we were the #1 state in the country for exodus. In 2012, we were #2. You can't keep up that flight of people and businesses and remain a growing and prosperous state. And so I know I can continue in Congress, I can continue to do the work there, but my constituents will not benefit from my work if we are an ever-shrinking economic pie in the state. So it's a short way of saying, if we don't get new leadership in Springfield, it makes my job in Congress that much more difficult of getting economic improvement for my constituents. So whether I run or whether I try and get behind someone else who I think can run, I'm adamant we need to find someone who can win the governorship, because we need to change.
Now, if you don't mind me saying, you're a younger guy, in comparison to some, other congressmen, things like that. Do you think that would be a help, be a hindrance in a governor race?
Well, I would point to my record in Congress. I've been the youngest member of Congress for 4 years. I serve on the most powerful committee there. I would say that out of 435 members, my age has not been an inhibitor, certainly, and I would argue that it's been a strength. And certainly here in Illinois, we have not been well served in this state by people with great decades of experience in state government. Certainly it's not Speaker Madigan's lack of experience. It's not John Cullerton, the Senate President's lack of experience. And it's certainly not Pat Quinn, who's been in state government for 30 years, lack of experience that has caused this crisis. I would argue we have these people who've been in government far too long, and perhaps it's time for the next generation of leadership to step up in this state.
You talked earlier this week in an interview with Chicago media about other candidates and potentially them moving out of the way in the upcoming primary. And you also had an ad that was running on TV and on radio, including on our station, that you felt was unfair, and sent some letters out asking for stations to pull them. I guess my question is, are you prepared for what will inevitably be an onslaught? I mean, there is a coming onslaught in the primary of stuff against you and against others. I mean, that's part of the game, but are you prepared for that?
You have to be. Certainly when I ran for Congress, I had a 3-way primary for Congress. 2 people each spent $500,000 apiece in that campaign against me, and I won. And then in the general election, I had a Democratic opponent and a Green Party opponent who raised a decent amount of money as well. So I think anytime you run for office, you got to be prepared to fight for it, to do battle for it. And I'm certainly not one to tell anybody they can't run. All I'm suggesting is for people to run the same kind of campaigns with the same candidates over and over and over. I think it's fair to scratch your head and say, okay, well, what's going to be different about this time? And if someone feels passionate about running, they should. But I think for the sake of our party, the activists, the volunteers, the donors need to look at the candidates that are exploring this right now and make a decision about who they want to get to, so that there can be some coalescing around the strongest candidate in the field. But I don't think it can be a party leader or any one person that anoints. I think that would be dangerous if our party tried to do that.